Hi there, it's Llarold, and today I'm going to talk about tank tier set bonuses in Vault of the Incarnates, the first raid tier in Dragonflight. You will be able to convert non-tier items into tier set pieces, just like you could with Sepulchre, the first ones in Season 4, where you could take a piece of gear that you got out of Mythic Plus and then use the Creation Catalyst to convert it into raid tier with some currency. You'll be able to do that once the Inspiration Catalyst unlocks in Dragonflight. It's currently planned to unlock 6 weeks after the raid unlocks. The raid opens on December 13th, so that would be January 24th, I believe. Blizzard has gotten a lot of negative feedback on this delay, so maybe they'll move that date up, but maybe not. There's just no way to know until it happens. In general, all of the tier set bonuses for tanks and healers and DPS and everybody really are pretty simple. The 2-piece bonuses for the most part are like 4 to 5% damage and damage reduction buffs for tanks, and the 4-piece bonuses are worth a little more damage reduction than that usually. Most of the bonuses don't alter your talent choices or your rotation in a significant way, and I think that's a really good decision on Blizzard's part, because they've just made such a radical redesign of the way that classes play and just build out their toolkit with the talent system rework. I think giving players a raid tier and a Mythic Plus season to figure out the new state of each class is a good idea. So super simple, non-intrusive tier set bonuses are a good way to make that a little less complicated. It also has a really good effect that's probably not intended in that it makes the tier set bonuses feel non-essential. Like, just to give an example, the 4-piece bonus for Brewmaster Monks and Shadowlands gave your Keg Smash 50% extra damage, and it made your Keg Smash heal you for 2/3 of the damage it dealt, and give you extra health worth 2/3 of the damage it dealt. That was an absolutely gargantuan bonus, and it was great, to have. Playing a monk with it felt super easy by comparison with playing a monk that didn't have it. Playing a monk without the bonus felt horrible. I had 2 max level monks and play one that had it and do, differences in gear, but whatever. It basically felt like I was reducing the difficulty of a Mythic Plus key just by having that bonus by like 5 whole key levels. Not an exaggeration. Your damage was weak, your defenses were way weaker until you got the full tier set bonus. There was just so much player power tied up in that it was a little dissatisfying to not have it. It made the class feel incomplete without. If the tier set bonus is just like an occasional 5% versatility buff, missing out on that isn't exactly a huge game-breaking big deal that makes you want to play something else. Now let's go class by class on all the tanks, starting with Blood DK. Blood DK's tier set bonuses add a lot of stat budget. The 2-piece bonus grants you a 20% chance to restore a rune every time you use a Bone Shield charge. If you use Tombstone and consume 5 charges at once, you get back a rune. This is a simple design, pretty much just totally passive, but it feels really good. Free resource generation is always good to have, but especially early on in an expansion when your item level and your stat budget is pretty low. The 4-piece bonus makes consuming 10 Bone Shield charges give you 10 seconds of 10% haste and 10% damage. This is another really simple bonus that works nicely with Tombstone, since that consumes 5 Bone Shield charges at once, and they do all count, and it just generally provides a good increase to stat budget and damage output. Both of these are good bonuses. Giving a class like Blood DK more resources to use on its self-healing is always really good. Everyone loves just passively generating more resources and getting more of their favorite stat and more damage. This is great. Demon Hunter's tier set bonuses are also pretty good, and they're fairly similar. The 2-piece bonus makes Fracture, your main Fury and Soul generator, generate 20% more Fury, 15% more Souls, and deal 20% more damage. This is a straight up buff to damage and resource generation, which again is fantastic, especially early on in an expansion. The 4-piece bonus gives Spirit Bomb and Soul Cleave, your main Fury and Soul consumers or spenders, a 12% chance to deal 50% more damage
and make your enemies deal 15% less damage to you for 8 seconds. This is a great damage increase and a really good defensive layer. The proc chance is a little low, but the potency on this buff is very high, and I think that in the context of the rest of Vengeance Demon Hunter's tons and tons of defensive layers, this is a really good way to balance this bonus. It's not going to proc or be up all the time, but when it is, it's a noticeable increase in tankiness. Plus, again, it adds a good chunk of damage. It's a decent chunk in single target, and in AoE, when you're spirit bombing like crazy, it is a lot of damage. This is great. These are simple bonuses. They add a ton of value without doing anything to intrude in your rotation or your talent setup. They just give you more fuel to throw on the fire. The 2-piece adds resources. That's a great thing. The 4-piece adds more defensive layers and more damage. Also a great thing. Legitimately all positive here. Bear Druids tier set bonuses are extremely strong. I really started with a good one, followed up with another good one, and now we're going into probably the best one. The 2-piece bonus makes mangle casts that benefit from gore deal 30% extra damage as AoE, and give you a 6-second 5% damage and damage reduction buff. Gore's the talent that gives all of your non-mangle skills a chance to reset Mangle's cooldown, and makes the next Mangle give you 4 extra rage. This is a really good bonus. It greatly increases the power of your core rotational skill, especially in AoE, and it makes you roughly 5% stronger all the time. Very simple, but very good. Noticeably better than all of the other 2 pieces. The 4-piece bonus increases your chance of triggering Gore by an extra 5%, which adds a lot of rage generation value into your base rotation. This bonus interacts very well with the 2-piece, also, obviously. It gives you more rage generation, more damage and uptime on that 2-piece buff, and more splash damage with your Mangle hitting more enemies. It also makes using Mangle with Gore active give you a pretty big heal over time effect. So, you can have pretty high uptime on both the heal from the 4-piece and the 2-piece damage and damage reduction buff. And this is a pair of bonuses that do like 4 different things. All the things synergize with each other. They all synergize with the rest of your kit. They help you generate tons more rage, which is something that's now extremely valuable to do as a Bear Druid. This is easily the pair of tier set bonuses that adds the most overall value to the class. And best of all, it does it in a way that's very simple. It doesn't require a huge adjustment to make it work. It just rewards you for playing well and consuming all those gore procs with, very quick mangles. It gives you a huge amount of extra power, and it gives it to you in the way that you would want as a tank. More damage reduction, a constant rolling hot, and then a bunch of splash damage in AoE. They're all great. Monk is up next, and I was gonna say probably, it's definitely the most annoying tier set. The 2-piece bonus grants you a 1% damage and damage reduction effect for 10 seconds whenever you use Tiger Palm or Spinning Crane Kick, and it stacks up to 4 times. This is worded in a way that would imply it would stack multiple times from a single Spinning Crane Kick. It does not. You will need to spend a little bit of time stacking this buff up, 4 Spinning Crane Kicks, and it is a bit of a maintenance buff. You should be able to keep it just going, all the time in the course of your normal rotation. That should be pretty easy, but it is something that you have to be aware of. The 4-piece bonus makes Purifying Brew remove 3% more stagger per stack of the 2-piece. This puts Purifying Brew at 62% stagger removal with the 2-piece fully stacked, which is really strong. It also interacts with all the talents that work with Stagger and Purify, like Gaiplin's Imperial Brew and Improved Invoke Nizao. These are decent bonuses. They're simple. 4% more damage and damage reduction is good. The 2-piece is annoying to stack up at the start of pulls, but it's easy to maintain once you've got it going, and the 4-piece adds a lot of defensive value. I really like that it interacts with talents as well. That was very appreciated. The 2-piece is right about what you would hope for in terms of offense and defense. The 4-piece is pretty great. The set as a whole is alright. It's not mind-blowing, it's pretty simple. It doesn't feel mandatory or game-changing, and that's both good and bad, I guess, but it is a little annoying. It's a decent little bonus you wouldn't mind having. That's about all. Pally's tier set bonuses are, again, simple, but they're not great. The 2-piece bonus grants you and a nearby ally 5% versatility for 10 seconds when you use Avenger's Shield. The nearby ally buff is interesting, it's the only tier set bonus that works like that. But this is a good bit weaker than most of the other similar tank 2-piece bonuses that grant damage and damage reduction. Versatility is a stat rather than a flat percentage buff, so it stacks in with the rest of your versatility, which has diminishing returns. And I don't mean like in the way where stacking stats has diminishing returns, like if you were to stack 100,000 haste rating, it will give you less haste percentage per point of haste rating as you get more and more. I just mean in the basic way that numbers work. If you have 0 versatility and you gain 5% from a buff, you now do 5% more damage. Great. But you're not going to have 0% as a pally. You're going to have a fair amount because versatility is good on tanks. If you have 20% versatility and you gain 5% from a buff, you only get 4% more damage. That's right on par with the other tanks' buffs, but it's versatility, so it only gives half as much value towards damage reduction. So where other tanks like Monk and Warrior are getting 4% damage and damage reduction, and Bear Druid is getting 5% damage and damage reduction, and BK's getting like 10% more resources, and Demon Hunter's getting, 15% more resources, Pally is getting 4% damage and 2% damage reduction. Sure, it's applying to a nearby ally, which is very polite, I guess, but this feels like a weaker bonus than every other tank has received. It feels like you're being cheated. The 4-piece bonus is not better. It makes using Blessed Hammer give you 4% parry for 10 seconds. It also extends the duration of the 2-piece by 1 second when you cast Blessed Hammer, and that applies to your ally as well. That's fine in Mythic Plus. 4% parry chance is worth about 3% more damage reduction or so in M+, because most of the damage coming in is auto attacks, but that's pretty much it, and it's pretty unreliable in raids. Not a good bonus. The extra duration on the 2-piece is very nearly worthless as well. You can't apply the 2-piece buff to more than one ally at a time, so there's not really any value to extending the 2-piece's duration. You can already maintain close to 100% uptime pretty easily. I guess someone could argue that the extra bit of guarantee that the 2-piece bonus is definitely never going to fall off is fine, but these bonuses are not very good. They're easy to maintain. That's good. The 2-piece is free stat budget, which is fine, but the 4-piece is very underwhelming. I have to say that I think this is the worst set of tank bonuses. I mean, I'll do a little tier list at the end of this, but it's the worst by a pretty fair margin. Again, it's free stat budget, but it's really minor, so I would not go out of my way to get these bonuses unless the items themselves were an upgrade. And that might be the only tier set where I would say, like, yeah, I wouldn't give up any I wouldn't give up any item level to get this. Kind of a disappointment. And finally, let's go over Warrior. The 2-piece bonus grants you 4% damage and damage reduction for 5 seconds after you use Revenge. Revenge is a pretty normal part of the rotation, so this just makes you better at what you already do all the time. It's free real estate. It's good. The 4-piece bonus makes the 2-piece bonus grant you 5% of all damage dealt as Ignore Pain as well. That doesn't sound that great on its own. It's basically just 5% leech, but it funnels into Ignore Pain, so you don't have to worry as much about overhealing. But there's one huge catch. It also works with the talent Brutal Vitality, which adds 30% of all damage you deal to your active Ignore Pain. You need to have Ignore Pain active for that talent to work, so it's not always functioning. But with this 4-piece bonus, it is. This effectively gives you 35% Ignore Pain leech, on top of the base 10% real leech that you get from the left side of the talent tree, for 45% total leech, which is absolutely insane. These are good bonuses. The interaction between the 4-piece and Brutal Vitality is extremely strong, and this is a very good tier set,
but there is a glaring issue. The execute phase. So during the execute phase of any kind of boss, you're going to want to spend any of your extra rage that you don't need for ignore pain and shield block on execute. But the 2-piece only works with revenge, and the 4-piece only buffs the 2-piece. This means that you can't really use execute very effectively and still maintain literally any value at all from either of the tier set bonuses. This is a complete oversight on Blizzard's part, and hopefully it's something they roll into this, but otherwise, neither of your tier set bonuses do anything unless you cast Revenge, and using Revenge instead of Execute during the Execute phase is annoying and stupid. It's not great to have to choose between using Executes during the time you're supposed to, or having tier set bonuses that do anything. This is a tier set bonus that is really good most of the time in Mythic Plus, pretty much always. In raids, it's still good 80% of the time, but during that final critical 20% of a boss fight, it's a really frustrating and clumsy design. Alright, that's all the tanks. Now I have to rank them out real quickly. I promised a tier set tier list, so let's just pull up a tier maker page here. Alrighty, I have a tier maker page pulled up here. Let's just drag all the tanks up into it a little bit here. We'll go Bear, we'll put that in B. Blood, that's B. Brewmaster, that's B. Warrior, also B. Beam Hunter, obviously B. And Paladin, also in B. Okay, so I think that Bear Druid, thinking about this from a Mythic Plus perspective and a raid perspective, trying to consider both of them, I think the Bear Druid completely laps the competition in all situations. You get a very significant damage and damage reduction buff, larger than you're getting on a monk or a warrior out of the Bear Druid one. It has really good uptime. It also comes with a very strong hot. It also gives you cleave damage, and it also gives you more gore procs so that you're getting more value out of everything else. That's an S tier set bonus. It's great for everything. It can't be beat. Prot Warrior, I think, is the next up when it's working well. The 4-piece, the 4% value out of the 2-piece is just okay, but the 4-piece bonus is so strong when it's working well and interacting with Brutal Vitality. It's just incredibly good in Mythic Plus. I think it is right in between S and A tier. Clearly not as good as the Bear Druid one, not as all-purpose as the Bear Druid one, but very good. However, there's the issue of the Execute phase, which, that'll apply to tyrannical bosses in Mythic Plus. It clearly will apply to raid bosses. And during that period, it's literally doing nothing. It's not even on the table during the period where you're executing. You have the option of just going, all right, I'm going to just ignore the Execute phase. I'll hit Revenge and continue to be tanky as normal. And so, then it's pretty good, but you're leaving a lot of single target damage on the table to do that. So for raid, I would say, it's probably Execute phase is only 20% of a fight. So it's still a B tier set bonus in raid. In Mythic Plus, it's right in that midpoint of S and A tier. So I would say in general, I think it's somewhere between A and B tier, and we'll call it bottom of A tier. Blood DK, you get so much resource generation out of this tier set bonus, which just fuels everything that DK does. The only real issue I have with it is just that it is a little bit RNG on that 2-piece bonus. The, 20% chance when you consume a bone shield to give you a rune back. That's a lot of value, but you can't always guarantee it, except for with Tombstone, where you absolutely can, which is great. I really like that a lot. I would say that this is top of A tier. It's definitely not adding as much damage and as much of rotational value as you're getting out of the Bear Gore set, but it is a slight step back from that. So I would say top of A tier here. Similarly, I think Demon Hunter is right in line with the DK one. It's giving you damage output, it's giving you damage reduction out of the 4-piece. The proc chance is a little low. It's 12%, so 1 in 8, 1 in 9. That's maybe a little bit less consistent, but it's still 20% more fury out of your main fury generator, 15% chance to spawn an extra soul out of your main generator, and more damage out of it too. It really adds up to a lot. So I would put this right in line with DK. I think it really works very well. And considering that Demon Hunter is, I think, a little bit stronger tank than DK right now, I think, yeah, maybe it's a bit ahead. Okay, let's go to Brewmaster next. My problem with Brewmaster really is just the annoying amount of time that you have to spend ramping up the 2-piece. You know, it does take several seconds. You're not just going to sit there and spam Tiger Palm or spinning Crane Kick to get it going. So it does take a little bit of time to get ramped up. It's pretty easy to maintain once it is up, and the 4-piece bonus is good. I really appreciate that it has some nice talent synergies, but it's not incredible, you know, like, I mean, technically speaking, I've been blowing a lot of smoke at this 4-piece from the Prot Warrior one. Technically, the Prot Warrior one's only 5% leech. It activates the 30% leech, so it has really great talent synergy, and I think that still counts in its favor. But, you know, like, is the Brewmaster 4-piece really like that competitive? It also has talent synergy, but the talent synergies are quite a lot weaker. Guyplin's Imperial Brew, or whatever it's called, it's quite a step down from Brutal Vitality. Because of that, I think the Brewmaster is at least a full step back from the rest of the pack. So if we're saying all of these are in A tier, maybe Warriors even in B tier in Raid and stuff, I think that Brewmaster, you know, proportional value, I think that Brewmaster is definitely a step back. And Prot Pally is absolutely a step back from whatever the next lowest is. It's giving half as much defensive value. The 4-piece doesn't really give any offensive value at all. The buff has great uptime. That's the nicest thing I can say about it. It's obviously not putting any sort of rotational impact on, which I don't really think is a bad thing. I think that having minimal rotational impact is totally fine, considering that all the classes feel new and shiny, and everybody should kind of get a little bit of time to figure out how they all feel just as a base class. Slapping 5% versatility on or whatever, totally fine. Except that Monk is getting 4% damage reduction, Warrior's getting 4% damage reduction. These two bad boys are getting like 10% more resource generation and 20%. This guy's getting 5% damage and damage reduction and a bunch of healing and quite a lot more damage if you're mangling in any sort of AoE. So it'd only get, you know, 4 to 4.5% more damage and 2% more damage reduction down here. You know, it's definitely a step back. Maybe it looks a little bit more like this. Maybe a little more like this. Either way, you know, there's a very clear hierarchy. This, absolute top tier. This, the bottom. This one, keeping them company, but definitely not quite in the same garbage can tier. And then these guys out here in the middle, you know, they're all fighting for second place, basically. All right, well, I think that about covers it. Thanks for watching. Bye.